Ladies and gentlemen, we are live coming at you live via broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook. It's our first show of the year. Isn't that exciting? Happy New Year, everybody. Hoping that your 2021 is better than your 2020. Now, I know a lot of people have been complaining and saying that 2020 wasn't that good, but I got to tell you, the NFL did it right. The season's finally over. We're going to talk about that and a lot more, man. We got some great stories for today, including what happened in Philadelphia. Last night was so weird. The NFL coaching purge has begun, and we're going to be talking about all the coaches that have been fired already or will be fired in the next 24 hours on Black Monday. Then we're going to cover the NFL playoff picture. It's finally clear as day. We can finally know who's in the playoffs and who's not. Then we're going to dip into the mailbag. Take questions from you people out there. My name is John Pandora, and I am your host today on the What's on Sports podcast. Of course, we are brought to you from our parent company, which is whatsonsports.com, and with our sponsor, which is sportstradingsystems.com. If you want to learn how to trade sports like other people trade stocks, go over to Sports Trading Systems, where you can learn all the secrets that you need to do to change your life in 2021. You want to make some more money? You want to have some potential to change your life? Go over to sportstradingsystems.com right now. It's not just picking your favorite team or anything like that. This is about learning how to use backtested historical data to invest in sports the same way people invest in stocks. Now let's talk about the weekend. And what a weekend it was, not just around the country, but around the world. Now, for those of you that don't know out there, I work for a company called, of course, What's on Sports. We're Sports Pub LLC. We are quite a large company. We have about 200 employees that work remotely. Some are in our home base in Jacksonville, Florida, and some of them work not only across the country, but around the world, including myself. I am currently working out of Thailand, and most of my team that works on the back end of everything is from the Philippines. And over here in Thailand right now, we had gone through 9 months of what was in the current situation that goes on around the world had to be considered bliss. We had almost no COVID, none that was reported, at least. Every once in a while, you would hear about a case that had flown in, an expat that had come in, or a Thai national that had been repatriated or something like that. We had no COVID. Well, recently, as of around Christmas time, we had a huge COVID outbreak, and the entire town is actually on lockdown. So for those of you that have gone through lockdowns or have had amenities taken away from you, I now know what it feels like. So this has been a hellish 10 days for me, basically stuck inside of what happens to be a pretty large condo. So I'm lucky, but I pretty much had my social life taken away. So all I'm doing right now is focused on sports, and at least I have that. And I got to tell you, what a weekend it was too. The NFL was such an amazing weekend. I can't imagine them putting together a better week 17. And, before we talk about anything, I think there's a moment right now that needs to be said. NFL, congratulations. Good for you guys. You guys absolutely positively killed it as far as getting the 17 weeks in with very few problems. Now, I know people complained and bitched and moaned, and that's what people do. And somebody will find a problem or a fault in something that you've done. But in my opinion, in my personal opinion, I think you guys did an amazing job of making sure that we had 17 amazing weeks of football. Now, there were some teams that had to go through some hardships because of some of the adjustments that were made. The Pittsburgh Steelers were among them. There were other teams, of course, that had to be, the Baltimore Ravens actually got their entire team almost sick at one point. Cleveland had to play 1 week with no wide receivers. San Francisco had a tough week where they had to try to field the team. The Raiders had a tough week where they had to field the team. Some of this was brought on by themselves. Some of this was just things that happened because of the virus. But either way, the NFL was able to give us 17 weeks of entertainment, and for that, you will always be remembered as one of the leagues that did it absolutely positively right. And what a Sunday yesterday was. Now let's go back to that. Yesterday was an amazing Sunday. To watch the Dolphins flame out in what has to be one of the most epic failures that you've seen in a long time. I mean, they had one game they had to win. The Bills were only going to play their starters in the first half. I think the Bills starters scored 35 points in the first half on a team that at one point in the middle of the season had to be considered one of the best defenses in football. Just unbelievable that this happened. How did this happen? How could this team go from being so good to being so bad? It's unbelievable to me. It's one of those things that really is going to take a while to really explain. What else did we see yesterday? We saw the Cleveland Browns, after 18 years, finally make the playoffs. Now, I'm no Browns fan, I can tell you that. As I've said many times on the show, if I had to pick a team, I would say I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I would say I'm pretty much a diehard about it. Now, as much as I don't particularly care for the Browns, I don't particularly dislike them either. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the fans of Cleveland because they've had something taken away from them that they really cared about, and that was the Cleveland Browns, originally taken away from them, moved in the middle of the night to Baltimore, and that team became the Ravens. So for a few years, the Cleveland people had no team. Well, they got the Browns back, and they fought through tooth and nail to go out there and be a good dog pound, to be a good fan base, go out and support that team. And what they've been given back has been absolute trash up until this year. Absolute trash. And the moment that they drafted Baker Mayfield, I told everybody that franchise will turn itself around. It's not going to be as fast as everybody thinks. It's not going to be a year. It's not going to be 2 years. But in 3 or 4 years, that franchise will turn itself around, and they will be perennial competitors to make themselves into the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be champions. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win Super Bowls. And I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs every year. But Baker Mayfield is going to make that team into a team that actually people are going to be afraid of. They're going to be a little bit weary of. And it's a team that could make the playoffs every year. They now have the potential to be that team. And this year they made it. Now, they snuck in. Let's be honest. They beat a Pittsburgh team that played probably 40% of their starters. A Pittsburgh team that played a quarterback who last year was absolutely horrendous, who didn't look bad yesterday. And Cleveland barely won. So Cleveland has to go into Pittsburgh next week and try to win their first playoff game in 2 decades. Can they do it? I don't think so.
Touchdown!